You don't feel it coming. There's no warning siren, no loud signal, no dramatic collapse like you see in movies. In fact, for many people over 50, a stroke begins quietly, with a small, easily ignored sign that shows up hours or even days before everything changes. And here's the frightening truth. Nearly 90% of seniors dismiss this early signal as nothing serious. They brush it off. They go to bed. They wait. And by the time they realize something is wrong, it's already too late. Because when a stroke strikes, every second matters. Brain cells begin dying within minutes. Damage that could have been prevented becomes permanent. But here's why you need to stay with me. Today, I'm going to walk you through 6 critical warning signs that your body may be sending before a sudden stroke. These are not the obvious ones you already know. These are the subtle, overlooked signals, especially common after age 50, that most people ignore. And at the end, I'll reveal the number 1 sign, the one doctors say is most often missed, yet most strongly linked to a major stroke within 48 hours. If you catch it in time, you may be able to prevent something life-altering. Before we begin, I want to know who I'm speaking to. If you're over 50 or caring for someone who is, type your age in the comments below. This isn't just a video. It could be a wake-up call for you or someone you love. Now let's begin. Number 6. It starts so subtly that most people don't even think twice about it. A sudden, brief episode of confusion. You might walk into a room and forget why you're there, or struggle to find a simple word in conversation. Maybe you lose track of what someone just said to you. At first, it feels like normal aging. But here's what most people don't realize. This kind of confusion, especially when it appears suddenly and without explanation, can be a sign of a transient ischemic attack, often called a mini-stroke. This happens when blood flow to part of the brain is temporarily blocked. Even if it lasts just a few minutes, it's a major warning. According to research published by stroke associations, nearly 1 in 3 people who experience a mini-stroke will go on to have a full stroke within 1 year, and many within just a few days. Now imagine this. A 67-year-old man is sitting at breakfast with his wife. Mid-conversation, he suddenly pauses. He can't remember the word coffee. He laughs it off, says he's just tired. 10 minutes later, he's back to normal. So he ignores it. 2 days later, he collapses from a major stroke that leaves him partially paralyzed. That 10-minute moment was his body trying to warn him. As you age, your blood vessels become narrower and less flexible. This makes it easier for small clots to temporarily block blood flow to the brain. That's why this symptom becomes far more dangerous after 50. So what should you do if this happens? First, never ignore sudden confusion, even if it passes quickly. If you or someone around you experiences this, seek medical attention immediately. Doctors can perform scans and tests to detect early signs of blockage. Second, start monitoring your blood pressure closely. High blood pressure is the number 1 risk factor for stroke, and it often has no symptoms. Here's a simple synergy tip most people overlook. Stay well hydrated. Dehydration thickens your blood, increasing the risk of clot formation. Just increasing your daily water intake can improve circulation and reduce strain on your brain. This isn't about fear. It's about awareness. Because your brain will whisper before it screams. And that brings us to number 5. This one is even more deceptive. A sudden, unexplained headache. Not a typical headache you've had before. This one feels different. It might come on quickly, feel sharper, more intense, or located in an unusual area of your head. Some people describe it as a bolt of pain. Others say it feels like pressure building inside their skull. And yet, many people dismiss it as stress, dehydration, or poor sleep. But this type of headache can be an early sign of a hemorrhagic stroke, or a warning leak from a weakened blood vessel in the brain. In simple terms, a blood vessel may be close to rupturing. Studies show that up to 40% of people who experience a brain hemorrhage report having a sudden, severe headache days or even weeks before the event. That's your window. That's your chance to act. Let me tell you about a woman named Sharon. At 72, she was active, independent, and rarely complained about her health. One evening, she felt a strange headache while watching television. It wasn't unbearable, but it was different. She described it as odd and persistent. She took a painkiller and went to bed. The next morning, she woke up unable to move the left side of her body. A ruptured blood vessel had caused a stroke overnight. Doctors later told her family that the headache the night before was likely a warning sign. And this is where age plays a critical role. As you get older, the walls of your blood vessels can weaken due to years of pressure, inflammation, and plaque buildup. This makes them more vulnerable to rupture. So what should you do? If you experience a sudden headache that feels unusual, severe, or unlike your normal pattern, don't wait. Especially if it's accompanied by nausea, vision changes, or neck stiffness. Get evaluated immediately. Don't rely on painkillers to mask the signal. Here's something practical you can start doing tonight. Track your headaches. If you notice patterns, changes in intensity, or new types of pain, write them down. This information can be life-saving when shared with a doctor. And here's a powerful synergy tip. Reduce your sodium intake. High salt consumption increases blood pressure, which directly raises the risk of both ischemic and hemorrhagic strokes. Even small dietary adjustments can significantly lower your risk over time. What makes this warning sign so dangerous is how easy it is to ignore, because it feels familiar. But your body doesn't repeat signals without reason. And as we move to the next sign, things become even more serious. Because the next symptom doesn't just affect your mind or your head. It starts to change how your body moves. Now we move to number 4. This is where the warning signs stop being easy to brush off and start interfering with your body in ways that are harder to ignore, but still often dismissed. A sudden loss of balance or coordination. You might feel unsteady while walking. Maybe you drift slightly to one side. Perhaps you reach for something and miss it just slightly. Some people describe it as feeling off, like their body isn't fully responding the way it should. It's not dramatic. You're not collapsing. You're still able to function. So you tell yourself it's just fatigue, or maybe your shoes, or even your age. But here's what's really happening. Your brain relies on a constant flow of oxygen-rich blood to coordinate movement and maintain balance. When that flow is disrupted, even briefly, it can affect the cerebellum, the part of your brain responsible for coordination. This is often one of the earliest signs of an impending stroke. In fact, studies show that nearly 45% of stroke patients reported experiencing unexplained dizziness or balance issues in the days leading up to their stroke. Let me give you a real-world picture. A 64-year-old woman named Helen was walking through her kitchen when she suddenly felt a strange pull to her right side. She steadied herself against the counter, waited a moment, and the feeling passed. She told her daughter later that evening, but they both laughed it off. "Just getting older," she said. 2 days later, she suffered a stroke that left her unable to walk without assistance. That brief moment in the kitchen was not harmless. As you age, the inner ear, muscles, and brain all work harder to maintain balance. But when blood flow to the brain becomes compromised, even slightly, it disrupts that delicate system. And here's what makes it more dangerous after 50. You're more likely to already have underlying conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or arterial stiffness, all of which increase the risk of reduced blood flow to the brain. So when your balance suddenly changes, it's not just a physical issue. It's neurological. What should you do? If you experience sudden dizziness, loss of coordination, or a feeling of drifting, even if it lasts only a few minutes, take it seriously. Sit down immediately to prevent falls. Then seek medical evaluation as soon as possible. Doctors can assess whether blood flow to your brain is being compromised. Don't wait for it to happen again, because next time it may not pass. Here's a simple but powerful action step. Start practicing balance exercises daily. Even something as basic as standing on one foot for 10 to 15 seconds can help you become more aware of subtle changes in your stability. And here's your synergy tip. Check your blood sugar levels. Fluctuations in blood sugar can worsen balance issues and increase vascular stress, especially if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic. Keeping it stable supports both your brain and your body. Now, we move to number 3. And this one is often misinterpreted as a completely different problem. Vision changes, but not the kind you expect. We're not talking about gradually needing reading glasses. This is sudden. You might notice blurred vision in one eye, or partial vision loss, like a shadow creeping across your field of view. Some people experience double vision. Others describe it as a curtain briefly falling over one eye, and then it disappears. So you assume it was nothing. Maybe dry eyes, maybe fatigue, maybe just a fluke. But this could be one of the clearest warnings your body gives before a stroke. When blood flow to the optic nerve or visual cortex is interrupted, even temporarily, your vision is affected. This condition is sometimes referred to as amaurosis fugax, a temporary loss of vision due to reduced blood flow. And it's a major red flag. Research shows that individuals who experience transient vision loss have a significantly higher risk of stroke within the following weeks, especially if left untreated. Let me tell you about David. At 70, he was reading the newspaper when suddenly, the words on the page became blurry in his right eye. It lasted about 3 minutes. Then his vision returned to normal. He mentioned it to a friend who suggested it might be eye strain, so he ignored it. 5 days later, he woke up with permanent vision loss in that same eye, caused by a stroke that could have been prevented. This is how quietly it can happen. As you age, plaque buildup in your arteries can restrict blood flow. If a small clot travels to the vessels supplying your eyes or brain, it can cause these temporary visual disturbances. Think of it as a warning flicker before the lights go out. So what should you do? If you experience any sudden change in vision, blurred, dimmed, doubled, or partially lost, treat it as an emergency. Even if it lasts only seconds, get immediate medical attention. Do not wait for it to happen again, because the next time it may not reverse. Here's something practical you can do starting today. Schedule regular eye exams, not just for vision correction, but for vascular health. Eye doctors can often detect signs of blocked or narrowed blood vessels before symptoms worsen. And here's your synergy tip. Incorporate foods rich in omega-3 fatty acids, like fatty fish, walnuts, or flax seeds. These help reduce inflammation and improve blood flow, supporting both your vision and your brain. Now, before we go further, I want to pause for a moment. If you've made it this far, it means you care about your health or the health of someone you love. And that matters, because awareness is the first step to prevention. So if you're finding this helpful, take a second to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone over 50. You never know who might need to hear this. Today, these signs we're talking about, they're not rare. They're not unusual. They're happening every single day to people who don't realize what their body is trying to tell them. And by the time they understand, it's often too late. Let's keep going, because now we're entering the most dangerous territory. Number 2. This is where things become unmistakably serious. But even here, people hesitate. A sudden numbness or weakness, especially on one side of the body. It might start in your hand. You pick something up, and it feels different, weaker, less responsive. Then maybe your arm feels heavy, or your leg doesn't move quite the same way. Some people notice a slight droop in their face when they look in the mirror. Others feel a tingling sensation, like pins and needles, that doesn't go away. And here's the critical part. It often happens on just one side. This is not random. This is your brain sending a distress signal, because each side of your brain controls the opposite side of your body. When blood flow is disrupted in one hemisphere, the effects show up on the other side. This is one of the most classic and most dangerous warning signs of an impending stroke. According to stroke data, over 70% of stroke patients experienced some form of unilateral weakness or numbness before or during their event. And yet, many still wait. They tell themselves it will pass. They don't want to overreact. Let me tell you about Robert. At 68, he was sitting in his living room when he noticed his right hand felt numb. He tried to grip the remote control and dropped it. He stood up, shook his arm, and waited. After a few minutes, the feeling partially returned, so he decided to lie down and rest. Within an hour, he lost the ability to speak clearly. By the time he reached the hospital, significant brain damage had already occurred. Doctors later said that if he had come in at the first sign of numbness, they could have intervened in time. This is how narrow the window is. As you age, your risk of clot formation increases. Blood vessels become narrower and circulation slows. So when a blockage occurs, your brain doesn't have the same resilience it once did. That's why this symptom must never be ignored, not even for a minute. If you feel sudden weakness, numbness, or loss of control on one side of your body, call emergency services immediately. Do not wait. Do not lie down. Do not see if it improves. Time lost is brain lost. Here's a simple test you can remember. Raise both arms. If one drifts downward, that's a red flag. Smile in the mirror. If one side of your face droops, that's another. These are not small signs. They are urgent warnings. And here's your synergy tip. Keep your blood pressure under strict control. because high blood pressure is responsible for nearly half of all strokes. Managing it daily through medication, diet, and stress reduction can dramatically lower your risk. Now, we're about to move to the number one sign, the one most people never expect, the one that often appears quietly but signals immediate danger. And what makes it even more terrifying is how often it happens right before bed. Now we come to number one. This is the sign that doctors fear the most, not because it's rare, but because it's so often ignored at the exact moment when action matters most. It usually happens at night, when everything is quiet, when your guard is down, and when your brain is most vulnerable. It's sudden difficulty speaking or understanding speech. You open your mouth to say something, and the words don't come out right. They're slurred, jumbled, delayed, or worse, you can hear someone talking to you, but their words don't make sense. It's like your brain and your mouth are no longer connected. And here's the most dangerous part. Because it happens in moments of fatigue, often late in the evening or right before bed, people dismiss it as tiredness. They tell themselves, "I'm just exhausted. I'll sleep it off." But this is one of the clearest and most urgent signs that a stroke may be happening or about to happen within hours. This condition is linked to a disruption in the brain's language centers, primarily in the left hemisphere, where speech production and comprehension are controlled. When blood flow to these areas is reduced or blocked, even briefly, your ability to communicate is affected almost immediately. According to neurological studies, more than 60% of stroke patients experience some form of speech disturbance either before or during the event. And when it appears suddenly, it is a medical emergency. Let me tell you about something that happens far too often. A man in his early 70s is sitting with his wife after dinner. She asks him a simple question. He responds, but his words are slurred, slightly off. She notices, but he laughs it off. "Just tired," he says. A few minutes later, he struggles to finish a sentence. He pauses longer than usual, searching for words that don't come. Still, they wait. They decide to go to bed. By morning, he cannot speak at all. The stroke occurred during the night, and the window to prevent it closed while he was asleep. This is the reality. Strokes don't always arrive with a dramatic collapse. Sometimes they whisper first, and speech is one of the earliest systems to be affected because it requires precise coordination between multiple regions of the brain. As you age, the risk increases significantly. Blood vessels stiffen, plaque builds up, circulation becomes less efficient. So when a clot forms or a vessel narrows, even slightly, it can disrupt critical brain functions like speech. And here's what makes nighttime especially dangerous. Blood pressure naturally fluctuates during sleep. In some people, it drops too low. In others, it spikes unexpectedly. This instability can trigger a stroke during the night, especially if warning signs were already present. So what should you do? If you ever notice sudden difficulty speaking, slurred words, confusion in understanding language, even if it lasts only a minute, you must treat it as an emergency. Call for help immediately. Do not go to sleep. Do not wait until morning, because every minute without oxygen causes irreversible damage to your brain. There is a treatment window, often just a few hours, where doctors can dissolve clots and restore blood flow. Miss that window, and the consequences can be permanent. Loss of speech, loss of mobility, loss of independence. But here's the hopeful part. If you act quickly, many strokes can be stopped before they fully develop. Lives are saved every day because someone recognized the sign and didn't ignore it. Here's something you can start doing tonight. Pay attention to how you speak in the evening. If you notice unusual pauses, slurring, or difficulty forming sentences, don't dismiss it. Ask someone to listen. Repeat a simple sentence out loud. If it doesn't come out clearly, that's your signal. And here's your synergy tip. Prioritize consistent sleep and manage nighttime blood pressure. Avoid heavy meals, excess salt, and alcohol before bed. These can increase blood pressure fluctuations and strain your SASUT-S when your body should be recovering. Also, keep your phone nearby at night. If something feels wrong, you need to act fast, because this one sign, more than any other, often appears right before a major stroke. And now you know, not just the obvious symptoms, but the subtle warnings your body gives you before everything changes. So what do you do with this information? You don't ignore it. You don't assume it won't happen to you, because stroke doesn't care how strong you feel or how independent you've been. It only cares about one thing: blood flow to your brain. And when that flow is interrupted, even briefly, the damage begins. But awareness changes everything. When you recognize these signs early, you give yourself something incredibly powerful: time. Time to act. Time to get help. Time to prevent a life-altering event. Think about the people you love: your spouse, your children, your grandchildren. They don't just need you alive. They need you present, able to speak, move, think, and live with dignity. And that future is still in your hands, because the body rarely stays silent. It sends signals, warnings, opportunities to intervene, but only if you're willing to listen. So starting today, pay attention. Notice the small changes. Take them seriously, even if they seem minor, especially if they seem minor, because the difference between ignoring a symptom and acting on it could be the difference between recovery and regret. Now I want you to do something simple but powerful. Subscribe to this channel, not for entertainment, but for protection, because the information you learn here could help you catch something early and change the outcome completely. And share this video with at least one person over 50, a parent, a friend, a neighbor, someone who might otherwise ignore these signs. You could be the reason they recognize a symptom in time. You could be the reason they get help before it's too late. And if even one person avoids a stroke because of what you shared, that matters more than you know. Your health is not guaranteed, but your awareness, that's something you can control. And now, you're no longer in the dark.